It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago. And tonight in the Big Apple, it's 7 p.m. Tonight. It's the night I've been waiting all month for this night. Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman, is back. God help us all. Mad Mike Messier is with us. Always happy to see Mike.
Yes. Yeah, Mikey.
Mike Messier was the first guest I ever had on the podcast. But tonight, I digress. Tonight, I get to rag on Rick. Is Ric Flair, the nature boy, the greatest of all time or the biggest loser of all time? Goat or bloat? Let's get right into it. Amelia, what say you to this question of the night?
Well, I mean, I met him when I was a kid, so I would say to me he's right. Well, right now he might not be the greatest to you, but I think he was the greatest to me.
Really?
Yeah.
This is from a Texas girl?
Yeah, from a Texas girl.
You Von Erich, traitor bitch you.
Wow. I'm not a big fan of the Von Erichs per se, but yeah.
Traitor to the Von Erichs. Mike Messier, that deserves a slap. Holy shit, brother. Mikey, talk to me. Mad Mike Messier. He is our resident. I know, if I know Mikey, and I think I know Mikey pretty well. If I know Mike Messier, he is going to praise the adulation of Ric Flair in every colorful language he can. Mike Messier, I like you so much, Mikey. I'm going to give you the big camera tonight.
Oh, wow. I appreciate that.
Thank you. It, brother. Tell me, why is Ric Flair the greatest of all time?
He's my personal favorite of all time as far as professional wrestlers go. I think greatest with wrestling especially is a subjective argument because how would you compare Ric Flair versus Lou Thesz in his prime or Bruno Sammartino, who worked in New York in the Northeast? Yeah. How would you compare even Ric Flair to today's Roman Reigns or John Cena 15 years ago? Yeah. Or The Rock or Hulk Hogan or anything. So in my opinion, from my experience as a pro wrestling fan for 4/5 of my life, Angelo.
Yeah.
My favorite pro wrestler of all time is Ric Flair. And I will defend that case. And even I'll defend the last 10 or 15 years of kind of the crazier nature boy that we've been seeing. So I'll defend Rick tonight.
I will tell people that I've gotten a lot of heat in our emails for even bringing this show onto the forefront. And we do get a lot of email here. I suppose the argument, really, I think Mike Messier made the argument here. I think the argument has to be made on what point in time you became a wrestling fan. That, I think, is, and it's a very subjective question that we ask tonight. Is Ric Flair the greatest of all time or the biggest loser of all time? And it really depends on how old you are, when you started watching, and importantly, Mike, where you started watching. Because, again, you point out Bruno was the man in the Northeast. Lou Thesz was the guy in St. Louis. Certainly, any of the Grahams or Dusty Rhodes was the main man in Florida. But in the Carolina territory, under Jim Crockett Promotions, Ric Flair was the guy. And there was nobody else. He was the guy. Mikey, when did you, because I know better than to ask you how old you are because you're going to lie to me anyway. Right. When did you become acquainted as a wrestling fan with Flair? What yearish?
It was around late 82, early 83.
Okay. 82, 83. So that would have meant, in my terms, that would have been the Vince Jr. era in the Northeast. Because the old man passed away in 1982, and then Vince McMahon Jr., of course, took his father's money and made $1 gazillion with it. Amelia,
yes.
You talk about, Ric Flair as the greatest of all time. When did you become, because you're substantially older than I am, you might be around Mikey's age. I don't know, because Mike lies about his age. But I know that you're like 51-ish, 52, somewhere around there.
Yeah, okay. I'm your wife's age, yes. Um, I actually was about 12 years old because I remember him in the Extra County Coliseum. He came
Mhm.
to wrestle with Southwest Championship Wrestling, and me and my sister were hanging around with Lucy, with Manny Fernandez and them.
Mhm.
He was at that era, and he
Mhm.
asked anybody can take me to the concession stands, and me and my sister were there. So we'll go, we'll take you. And then another wrestler and another adult said, "We'll go." He goes, "No, I already asked these two young ladies. They're gonna take me. Period."
Yeah.
So he said, "How are you girls doing? How you like wrestling? When did you get on?" He started asking us just questions, how we were. Really
Right.
nice guy, down to earth. And so we walked to the concession stand, and he actually bought us some concession stuff and
Right. So
walked us
you
back.
you
Very personable.
this was Ric Flair pre-alcoholic days. Okay.
Really great guy, down to
Okay.
earth, really sweet to us. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's get real about Rick for a minute. I will tell everyone, in the interest of full disclosure, as a professional wrestler, I think again, this is just my opinion, guys. In my opinion, I think that Rick has a very limited move set. I think he's got a very limited skill set. But the one thing he has, Mike Messier, in spades, in buckets, in droves, is personality and charisma. He's got that it factor. There's something about him. He's like a train wreck, even when he's having a good day,
Right.
because you never know. Because sometimes, Mikey, Rick talks so fast and so loud.
Mhm.
Sometimes the proverbial gem is going to slip out, be it good or bad. Usually bad, which means it's good. And
I mean,
if you guys don't understand that, ask Mike Messier. He's the filmmaker. He'll tell you what that means.
yeah. Well, I mean, for me, Angelo, I was just watching some Ric Flair promos on my way over here, and
Mhm.
we're talking the '85 to '87 era when he's talking about Ronnie Garvin and Sting and all those guys,
Mhm.
and
Oh
the way
yeah.
that he used to just list off Barry Windham. He'd always list off 5 or 6 different possible opponents.
Oh
He'd start
yeah.
listed off the cities and the hotels. I mean, I find, and as far as the in ring, work, as they say, I find.
Mhm.
I'll just give you a personal narrative, Angelo.
Sure.
I started watching live pro wrestling matches.
Mhm.
Bob Backlund was the champion, wrestling
Mhm.
Playboy Buddy Rose and Magnificent
Okay.
Morocco. And
Mhm.
then I actually saw the Iron Sheik defend the WWF title in the Fairfax High School gym against Chief Jay Strongbow. I was one of the few people to see an Iron Sheik title defense. And then I saw
Right.
Hulk Hogan. I saw Hogan wrestle maybe 7 or 8 times against Terry Funk, Greg Valentine, Big John Studd, and
Mhm.
others before my very first NWA show, which was a bunkhouse stampede in Baltimore, Maryland, at the arena
Mhm.
in back when it was the Baltimore Civic Center.
Oh
And
God, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
there was a kind of a double main event. But
Mhm.
the first of the 2 main events was Ric Flair against Nikita Koloff for the NWA World Heavyweight title,
Right.
a rematch from Starrcade, and Flair and Nikita went 56 minutes of a 60-minute time
Wow.
limit,
Mhm.
and
Gee.
somewhere pretty deep into the 56 minute, Rick got disqualified for the old backdrop over the top rope.
Oh.
Now, well, here's the thing, Angelo, and we still had a 45-minute bunkhouse stampede after that. So,
Yeah.
which of course Dusty won, right? So,
Oh, naturally, yeah. It was his match.
yeah. So the
Course.
modern day
Hi.
fan, the modern day fan, if you said we're going to sit through a 56-minute title match and there's going to be a over the top rope DQ finish, would be hashtagging and crying in their diaper and
Oh
protesting in the
God, yeah.
streets and saying they were never going to watch wrestling again and then watch it 5 minutes later. But
Yeah.
for us fans in Baltimore, at least myself, I was amazed. And to me, Angelo, as a
Mhm.
fan, no offense to Bob Backlund, the Iron Sheik, or Hulk Hogan, but this was like graduate level, masters level wrestling fan stuff at the time.
Oh, sure.
Because, and little did I know at the time, Angelo, I'm just watching this thing, and I knew the deal by then, but I'm watching it
Sure.
like it's a competitive match.
Yeah.
I didn't know till years later that Nikita, by his own admission, was so green and even at that point pretty inexperienced
Yeah.
that for Nikita to go to 56 minutes with anybody was a testimony to anybody, not to Nikita, right? So
Exactly. Exactly right.
So the stuff with, and I know what you mean by the limited move set, and I guess when you talk about, Flair's going to get thrown off the top rope, and Flair's going to chop somebody, and Flair's going to fall on his face. Yes, he has his go-to stuff. I would argue that Jake the Snake Roberts has talked about that at length. Jake the Snake says you need 6 moves to get over. Do those 6 moves, and people will be behind you. I would argue that the best wrestlers, even the Bret Harts or even the modern day guys that I don't particularly like the Bucks, the Young Bucks or whoever, I think they all kind of rely on their go-to moves because guess what? That's what the fans want to see.
That bothers me too, Mikey, because one of the things, and Mikey and Amelia knows, it's one of my pet peeves is when people, particularly young wrestlers, and I hear them say, I just want to get my shit in. That's something that drives me up the friggin' wall. I promised no F-bombs tonight, but I'm going to get close.
Go ahead. You're going to do it eventually
no,
tonight.
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to behave myself.
Okay, we'll help you behave yourself tonight.
The thing about Ric Flair, though, Amelia and Mikey, is I'll give the guy credit where it's due. He is a hell of a talker.
Yes.
He's a hell of a promo.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that.
He does have a certain je ne sais quoi, a certain, pardon the language, or he's got, pardon the pun, I should say.
The last name Flair.
He has a certain flair to him, and that came in handy, actually, the flair for the gold, there is a certain kind of, charismatic nature to him. He's very likable.
Oh, absolutely.
If you've ever met him when he was, before the pre-alcohol days, he was very likable, very approachable, nice guy. He's still a nice guy, but something's gotten into him that he'll never get out of him. It's called the wrestling bug. It's called the wrestling bug. And that's become a problem for him at 75 years of age, because he's pushing 75 now.
Yeah, he just turned 75 this past February. So
and it's not becoming to a 75-year-old guy who wants to get in the ring with a 26-year-old.
That's true.
I have a problem on so many levels with that. We're going to look at a video right now. It's a montage, and this was taken from about 7 or 8 different wrestling sites. None of this stuff is familiar to me. Here's what I did. I did a search, Ric Flair, and that's all I did. Here's what came up. Mike Messier, take note. Watch this, guys. Okay, Mike Messier. First of all, your thoughts on that video?
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the modern day headline clickbait stuff. And I think one of the stories that was being kind of, clickbaited in some of those headlines was that Ric Flair it was a marijuana company, Ric Flair Drip, I think it is. I think that's what it's going on. And his company, which basically I don't know if he is the only owner or if he's just the face of the company.
I want to tell people. I'm glad you said something, Mikey, because I want to get this right from the get go.
Sure.
Ric Flair is in business with Hulk Hogan and some other individuals they formed a CBD company
Yes.
Right.
that people who don't smoke marijuana may not know, but people, us potheads, we know what CBD is, and it's actually very beneficial for your vision, your health. It's good stuff. I mean, it's
Right.
very, very good for the body.
For your joints,
But
everything like
he's
that.
Flair has taken a lot of criticism
Mhm.
for his involvement in this quote unquote drug company. First of all, it's legal in like 42 states right now. So it's no longer quote drug anyway. So Mikey, continue, and people don't
Okay.
understand now. They got some perspective.
So basically, the company that Flair's associated with has bought advertising space on AEW, All Elite Wrestling programs that are on the Ted Turner, affiliated Legacy, TNT, TBS networks. And so Rick, as kind of a promotional tie-in, has been brought in to AEW. He did some stuff leading up to the Sting retirement match with Darby Allin and the Young Bucks, and basically even going as far as being on the pay-per-view from Greensboro, the Sting retirement pay-per-view. And Flair got involved in the match and took some shots, and Ricky Steamboat was there and took some shots. And the basic argument for maybe the last month and a half, if not more, is from some, not me, but from some AEW fans, why is Nature Boy Ric Flair, who's been accused of being a sexual harasser on this, WWF flight from 20 years ago and other such things, and has had some trouble with DUI type of stuff, why is Ric Flair being brought into AEW, which for the most part has prided itself on being kind of a modern day Generation Z, politically correct. No wrestlers were hurt in the making of this wrestling program company. And and AEW, just as backstory real quick, they've done stuff like sensory perception rooms for wrestling fans. I never would have thought of that. I'm sure Paul Bosch never thought of that, but I think it's kind of cool that they did stuff like that. And so AEW has had this kind of genteel, touchy-feely type of thing associated with their company. So some of these fans are crying about it, hashtagging, why is Ric Flair in our politically correct wrestling company? And the answer is because Tony Khan, like myself, is a Ric Flair mark. That's the answer.
Well, the other thing too, and let's just call a spade, Mikey. He's spending good money for television advertising on AEW, and you saw that heading there that said Ric Flair effectively paying to be on AEW. Well, the truth is you can make the argument for it either way, but is his company there? Yeah, it is. Okay. Is he paying Tony Khan money to be on TV? Well, I suppose in a backdoor way, yeah, he is.
Right.
But the bigger question, Mikey just answered it. Why is he there? Because Tony Khan, money. I should call him Tony Money.
Right.
He is fucking money. There was my first F-bomb, folks. But Tony Khan is a money mark, and he's a Ric Flair mark, and probably in the ballpark of the same age that Mike Messier is.
Sure.
We don't know because Mike lies about his age. And
let's just say he's 40.
But yeah, right. But here's the thing, though. In seriousness, in all seriousness, Tony Khan is a guy who likes the people he grew up watching. If you see his roster, they're people that he likes. The AEW fan likes them by proxy. And that's my opinion. He likes them by proxy. But the truth is, they're people that Tony likes. And let's not kid ourselves about that. But Amelia, you saw some of them headlines. Give me your thoughts on what you've seen here. I'll bring up the big camera.
Well, I mean, of course, if he's going to go where the money is, if he's going to ask people, to join that, if he's going to ask Ric Flair, he's going to ask certain people, his favorite people, to ask to, be in that company. Who wouldn't?
But don't you see though where some people might consider the fact like Ric Flair, he's no longer an active wrestler.
Right.
He's far past his prime.
Yeah.
Very far past his prime. Okay. He retired 3 times from wrestling.
Yeah, and so did The Rock, unfortunately.
But here's my question though. What is he doing there other than spending advertising money to be around the business?
Pretty much that's all he knows. I feel that Ric Flair,
that's it. Mike Messier, I think Amelia just put her finger on it.
Yeah.
That's all he knows.
We've all seen the movie The Wrestler, and probably the most pivotal scene is our buddy Evan Ginsberg, in the VFW. The VFW where Mickey Rourke goes, Robbie the Ram thinks he's going to sign a bunch of autographs for a bunch of wrestling fans and make $20 a head. And he shows up and there's like 10 wrestlers and 5 fans. And one of his fellow wrestlers has like the IV drip thing going. And my point is, Amelia hit it, which is Ric Flair only knows wrestling. And my continuation of Amelia's point is the fact that Ric Flair is holding on now at age 75 and still wants to be involved and take shots from the young bucks and still willing to chop a guy and get beat up and wrestle, 2 summers ago with a ticker in his chest in a tag team match for his 3rd retirement. Yes. Yeah. The fact that that's Ric Flair at age 75, that just certifies that at age 41, when he was winning the Royal Rumble in New York, and when he was, 38 wrestling Sting in Baltimore, and when he was 36 wrestling Ronnie Garvin in Chicago at Starrcade 87, that just says that Ric Flair back then really loved the business. He was the business. The business was him. And the continuation of that can only go of one of 2 ways. Either you die, like a lot of our favorite guys have, like Pillman. One of my favorites is Pillman. You die like Pillman, or you hang on and you get older and you get a little beat up.
Well,
and that's what we got. So pick your poison.
You're going there, and that's exactly where I was hoping you'd go.
Right.
Because I noticed the Pillman shirt. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Flair outlived everybody. He is truly the cat that's got 9 lives, okay? He survived 2 or 3 heart attacks. He survived, a plane crash. It should have killed him. Yeah. Like he should have been dead. The problem is instead of being grateful for the life that he has, he wants the life that he had. That's the problem. Because now, and again, in my humble opinion, as much as I'll say he's charismatic, as much as I'll say he cuts the best promos, as much as I'll praise him, and I will praise him, the biggest drawback, the only problem I have is one major problem. Go away. Enjoy what you're seeing. You're no longer a part of it. Walk away gracefully, and he can't do that. He doesn't know how, because he's not Richard Flair. He never was Richard Flair. He's Nature Boy Ric Flair. And only because Nature Boy Buddy Rogers allowed him to be Nature Boy Ric Flair. Because at that point, even Nature Boy Buddy Rogers knew. He knew it was his time to go. His days were in the 40s and 50s. He wrestled partially in the 60s. But by 1964, 65, Buddy Rogers was already retired and a multimillionaire. Now, I'm sure Rick isn't hurting for money anymore. Not that Vince gave him almost $1 million,
Well, just a little pop culture trivia, though, Angelo. I believe that Buddy Rogers in his 70s was scheduled to wrestle Nature Boy Buddy Landell for Tri-State Wrestling, but Tri-State Wrestling went out of business before they could do the match.
That's absolutely true.
So
The-
Buddy
and-
Rogers never gave it up either.
Well, no. Buddy Rogers was smart. He held out for the money. And
Sure.
by the way, I knew Buddy Rogers, and I will tell you, as a matter of fact, he got the money before the show. The company went out of business. Joel Goodhart went out of business. Tri-State Wrestling became ECW, and they told Buddy keep the money.
Good.
They
I'm glad he
told
got it.
Yeah, he got his money.
I'm glad. Well,
Buddy
here's
was a very wealthy guy.
Yeah.
He was a very smart guy. He knew when to hold out for the money. But the other thing that, and by the way, I saw Buddy wrestle at 68 years of age with Jimmy Snuka versus Captain Lou Albano, and I forget,
Ray
who the hell-
Stevens.
Crippler Ray Stevens at the Philadelphia Spectrum.
Yeah.
I was there that night.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that for 68 years old, that old man was built like a brick shithouse.
Wow.
You know, he was built that. And by the way, he was a former Camden, New Jersey police officer too, which is another reason he was in good shape. But let's talk about this guy. I want to bring something up here, Mikey. Take a look.
Sure. Oh, look at that.
I wanted to bring this up. Now, I don't know. This is, by the way, from AEW. This
Not
is
from the
one of
petition.
this is one of their things. It says fans demand Flair, quote, go away, unquote.
That's not official AEW. That's just some wrestling fan site, basically
Okay.
citing a minority. I would suggest a minority of the AEW fans, and in this day and age, nobody knows how to do quotes properly. Nobody knows how to actually make headlines that are factual. Because if that was to be accurate, it would say some fans demand Flair go away, or even better, some fans suggest Flair go away, because guess what? The fans aren't in charge of if Flair goes away or not. Tony Khan is.
Tony Khan is absolutely
right. So apparently the fans' demand did not get met, and I would almost guarantee that no fan of AEW stopped watching specifically because Ric Flair was there. They might hashtag and cry about it, but they're not actually going to stop watching. Just like the WWE fans cry about Vince McMahon, but they've continued to watch. So there you go. Wrestling fans need their candy, they need their heroin, and they're going to put it into their arm and into their eyeballs every week. They're not going to stop watching.
Mikey, this guy that you're watching right now, Dutch Mantel, has been very vocal on Ric Flair and Tony Khan lately.
Sure.
I've been listening to his show, his podcast, and I listened, to a little bit of everything. He's been really hard on Tony Khan, basically kind of saying that he needs to be replaced as the face, of AEW. Which, I mean, it's hard to do. It's like saying that Vince McMahon needs to be replaced as the face of WWE.
Sure.
Well, that's happened now, but it took, a lot of salacious things to happen. But let's talk about this headline here for just a second. How much, then let's be on, just be very clear and very honest about this. How much damage is Tony doing to his own company by not adhering to the will of most of the fans? And we're not going to say all of the fans, but you do have to kind of, as a promoter, if you're going to call yourself a promoter, you do have to kind of put yourself in that place where you're thinking about the majority of your viewership, right? And now you're not going to take into consideration everybody. It's just, you can't. It's impossible.
Right.
But there are a lot of people, we're talking about a lot of people who watch AEW. Especially now that Vince is gone and AEW's got a pretty decent product, to be honest with you. I'll just tell you straight up. I watch them once in a while.
Sure.
And I think they got a really good product. But how does Tony not F up his own company with people like Flair, who should never have been at Sting's retirement? And there, you saw one of the headlines that said Sting furious over Ric Flair's appear or something like that. Backstage drama is whatever it said. Something like that.
I from my perspective, Angelo, first off with the Sting Flair thing, did that really happen, or did just some YouTube podcaster or a Brian Alvarez or a Dave Meltzer do what they do, which is they hear a whisper from Terry Taylor or some other stooge calls them and tells them some version of a story. I would suggest that Sting wanted Flair to be involved in his last match, and so Flair was involved. If Sting didn't approve that and greenlight it, I don't think Flair or Steamboat was there. I mean, it made more sense for Flair to be involved than Steamboat, yet Steamboat was involved. And furthermore, I would just say that if I had an issue with Tony Khan, it would be not with him bringing in a Ric Flair or a 62-year-old Sting to win a tag team title, or bringing in this guy from Japan, or pushing this tag team or whatever. It would be, Tony, stop pushing Tony, because Tony Khan is never going to put a pair of trunks on and wrestle. So I don't need to see. You're welcome. I don't need to see Tony Khan on TV. In fact, Angelo, before AEW aired program number 1 on TBS or TNT, one of my Angry Wrestling Fan videos was I challenged Tony Khan to go 90 days without being on AEW television. And he couldn't get past 30 days without being on AEW.
No, he can't do it. But you said something important. That your argument, the argument you made, that's the argument that Dutch Mantel is making right now. He has been harping on this. Stop putting over Tony and put over the promotion. It's like Vince McMahon putting the world championship on himself.
Yes.
Why do you need to? You're the fucking owner of the company. Mm-hmm. You own this shit.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And
you're
there's
the owner. You got guys, you're paying good money to these guys. Let them earn their living. Let them be on television. Let them make a name for themselves.
Promote them first. Yeah, put yourself in the back.
He's already got his billions.
Exactly.
Mike, he'll tell you, him and his father are multi-billionaires.
Yeah.
And I would draw a line.
These guys got a lot of money, man. They got a lot of money.
I would draw a line, Angelo and Amelia and everybody watching and listening, that there are people, wrestling promoters, who were first a wrestler, namely Bill Watts, Vern Gagne, Dusty Rhodes, Fritz von Erich, perhaps. I'd put them in one camp. Like, these were the wrestlers who started a promotion or helped start a promotion or had the dual job of wrestler / booker. If they put a belt on themselves or a bunkhouse stampede boot on his foot or whatever, I'm okay with that. It's the Vince McMahons, my buddy Vince Russo, our buddy Vince Russo. I put him in the second camp. Tony Khan, I put in the second camp. And at least Tony doesn't wrestle matches as of now. You know, maybe next week. Maybe next week he will. But my point is, I will take the wrestler. The wrestler who becomes a booker and then books himself, I can give a little bit towards that, even a Jerry Lawler or whoever. But the booker man who doesn't belong in the ring, Vince, the Vince McMahon, Vince Russo, and whoever else, Dixie Carter, if she ever won a title. But I just think that it's a show of arrogance, and what it is to me is that they get the bug. And then they feel like the audience wants them. And I think that whether Tony Khan wants to admit it or not, he's got a very odd presence on television. He's got and people make memes and they make fun of him. They think he's a coke addict and all this stuff. I don't think necessarily that. I think he's probably sleep deprived. I think he's probably a caffeine junkie. I think he's probably an adrenaline junkie. He's flying back and forth throughout the country. I live in Jacksonville. They never did a good job of promoting AEW in the city of Jacksonville. When I went to the shows at Daly's Place for 2 years, even when they could sell more tickets after the pandemic, they never had capacity, because I go around Jacksonville with a wrestling t-shirt on and people don't know what AEW is in Jacksonville, because
that should tell you everything you need to know, Mike.
There's no billboards.
Everything. Yeah, but there's a big difference between physical presence on billboards and buses or whatever, that kind of stuff. And historically, it's proven to be true that billboard advertising does nothing for ticket sales. Putting your, wrapping a bus in your logo that does nothing for ticket sales. The only thing that drives ticket sales, the main thing that drives ticket sales, television.
Yes.
And if you want people in Jacksonville to know that one of the major wrestling promotions in the world is from Jacksonville, the only way to do that is on television.
Well,
and he's got the money to do it.
He doesn't even need the money, Tony, because they've got so much swag with the Jaguars. Everyone loves the Jaguars here, right?
Yeah.
And they're a Midland above average team, but they're not a great team for the last 5 or 10 years. But the Jaguars, they have a lot of pull. Yeah. Everyone's very pro Jaguars. Daly's is a gas station company. So when you see Daly's place, that's a local gas station company, right? Well, Tony has to pick up one phone, and any local Jacksonville TV station would do a great interview with the wrestlers, and they could say, "Hey, come down to the wrestling show, and the blood bank bus is going to be there. Give blood and get $5 off your ticket, or get a wrestler's T-shirt or an autograph." They could do so much stuff, and they don't. I'm saying they don't do that. If I were working for this company, they would be doing this stuff, but they don't do stuff like that. So my big thing here, guys, is going back to Ric Flair. I'm listening to this audio book about Ric Flair's life. I think it's called The Last Real World Champion: The Legacy of Ric Flair. I'm just starting it, but Angela, I want to dig a little deep into the consciousness of Nature Boy. My feeling is he was a black market baby from Memphis. Yeah. As far as I know, he's never met his biological parents. There may be no record. No. Some guy apparently claimed to be Ric's biological brother, and Flair had no interest in meeting this guy, which I find shocking. In my opinion,
I'm not surprised at all. I know that story.
Yeah, his adopted father was a very well-established doctor who did community theater in his spare time. So Ric's father was like this Renaissance man. He's a doctor during the day
and an actor at night.
There's a story of Flair's father,
Mike Messier. He's a brain surgeon during the day and goes to the movies at night.
Yeah. So to me, Ric didn't have the academia. He had to repeat his junior year in high school, apparently.
Yeah.
He didn't have the book smarts to be a doctor, nor did he have the interest. But
that was the big thing, yeah.
Right. The profession for him is where Ric could be a professional party animal. He could be he wasn't as skilled of a football player. He wasn't big enough to be a major football player. He wasn't tall enough to play basketball. He wasn't fast enough or could throw far enough to be track and field. The one profession in this world that he could do as good or better than anybody else, and he could have as much fun as he could have, and he could wear everybody out and be the Nature Boy 24 hours a day, is professional wrestling. And through the grace of God, he found the business that needed him, and he needed it.
Well, the other thing that we should talk about this for just a second. He did play football for a while. He played very poorly. That's why we don't know Ric Flair as a football player. I remember early on, because I'm older than dirt, that Ric Flair, before he became Ric Flair, wanted to be known as Ramblin' Ricky Rhodes because he just admired the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. This is back in the middle to late 70s, I believe.
73.
And Ramblin' Ricky Rhodes was 300 pounds, big boy. And he said, Dusty told him, instead of being, Ramblin' Ricky Rhodes, why don't you be the best Ric Flair you can be? And that's where Ric Flair was born. That strictly out of the fact that Dusty Rhodes didn't know how to say Flair. He said Flair. And that's, gems are born that way. You can't make this shit up. They're the things of movies. I do have to do a commercial break right here, and we will be right back. Mike Messier, we're going to continue that story right after this. Do you have sweaty balls or volleyball netty balls? It's time to make them ready balls. The Manscaped.com Lawnmower 3.0 will do the job and clean your knob with its patented no-nick head, so your head will function as desired. Enter promo code Wrestling Future for a generous 20% discount. That's enter Wrestling Future for a 20% discount. Manscaped.com and Wrestling with the Future, going balls to the walls with Manscaped.com and the Lawnmower 3.0. Your balls will thank you, and so will we. WWTF Radio 88.7 on the broadband radio system for all of your WWTF radio needs. Check us out. There's a one-stop shop, folks. It's linktree.com. Go to linktree.com/WWTF radio. All of our links in one place. I love Linktree and they love me. We have a big hug fest going on right now. This is Wrestling with the Future in our sixth year. And tonight, back with Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman. God help me, she's back. Mad Mike Messier, and we are on Ric Flair, the GOAT or the BLOAT, the biggest loser of all time or the greatest of all time. I think that we should just be honest about it. He's one of, and you'll get the admission out of me, he's one of the greatest of all time. I'll give him that. He's one of. There are a number of things that he did in recent years, I think, could add, and Mike, I want to talk to you and Amelia about this. He's done a number of things in the last 3 to 4 years that could have, were it not for the intervention of other people, could have derailed his legacy, derailed his sense of goodwill with the people quite adversely. One of those things is a sexual allegation. The another thing is his perceived. I don't know how you would. I'm going to try to be kind about saying this. His flirtatious nature with the women, which he's. We know that he's always been a ladies' man. Yeah, you know? There's no denying that. At what point, Mike Messier, Mad Mike Messier, at what point is too much, or when do you say, okay, Rick, you got to stop now?
Well, I feel like in some regard, Rick, maybe what you're saying is that Rick has become a caricature of himself, and
he really, in my opinion, he was in danger, serious danger of becoming a characterization of himself. Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's like, you know, a guy like Jim Morrison was off the rails with alcohol and he died at age 27. Yeah. Ric Flair, you know, and I've met Ric Flair 4 times, but never in a social situation. But from all the stories that I hear, even from Rick's own mouth, he has probably had an alcohol addiction for most of his adult life, if not all of it. There are people that get by in life with an alcohol addiction that accomplish many wonderful things. And if they don't get a DUI and get put in prison, or God forbid, they don't kill someone or themselves in a drunk driving accident, or they don't give themselves kidney disease and get impaired from that, then a lot of people, and Ric Flair is the shining example, can live very substantial, very wonderful lives while still having the disease of alcoholism. And we can go down a whole rabbit hole of who do you blame for that? You know, I mean, that's the drug beyond marijuana that our country says, that's okay. Have another drink. Have one on us. So
it's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you talk about CBD, and I would argue that CBD probably is a lot more beneficial than alcohol. But
you'll not get an argument from me, Mike.
No.
Right.
You'll never get an argument from me on that one, brother.
Yeah, thanks. As far as the sexual allegation stuff, I know that when the Plane Ride from Hell episode of The Dark Side of the Ring came out, There was a lot of heat on a lot of people, stuff that was 15 years old buried. I can't remember the exactness of it, but the stewardess on the flight, one of the stewardesses basically says that Flair exposed himself to her.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she said that he groped her or pulled her. And this does not mean that what she says is not true, but that lady, that very stewardess, had, I believe, a grand theft heist charge on her record.
She absolutely did, and that's legit, and that's absolutely true. She sure the fuck did that.
Right. So, I mean, at some point, my feelings on the plane ride from hell, and I was not on that flight. I was nowhere near it, but part of Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, God rest his soul's reputation, he was a prankster, and he he'd like to drop what they call the H bomb. The drug that he liked to do this, according to the other wrestlers, not according to me. He liked to drop this drug into his buddies' drinks. Yeah. If you look at the behavior on that flight, it seems like Hennig probably drugged maybe Lesnar, maybe Michael Hayes or X-Pac or Flair.
Brother, 3/4 of that plane were loopy.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem like a drug thing? Doesn't that seem like it could have been a drug thing that Hennig was known for doing that?
Was the drugs. Oh yeah, those guys were beyond alcohol. That the alcohol will do crazy things to you, but it won't do that crazy. It'll impair your judgment, but it won't. People don't understand this about alcohol. I've got alcoholics in my family, so I know. Alcohol is a depressant. The people on that plane, they were high as a freaking kite, okay? They were high as a kite. Alcohol will impair your judgment. You'll slur your words. You'll embarrass yourself. And then you'll go in the corner and crawl up and realize that you embarrassed yourself because you're still lucid. They were beyond lucid. There was something wrong with those guys on that plane, the Mikey's plane ride from hell that he's talking about.
Yeah, and
it was way beyond the scope of alcohol.
And Kurt Hennig in particular, who was on that flight and was grappling or fighting with Brock Lesnar in the moving airplane, for God's sakes. Hennig apparently was known for dropping these drugs into people's drinks. That was a holdover from the 80s, and this was in 2002, I think. So my speculation, I wasn't there. My speculation is that probably had something to do with Flair and everybody else acting the fool, so to speak.
Yeah, well, you got no inhibitions, Mikey. He didn't have a stitch of clothes on. He had his robe on. He went into the airplane, lavatory in the back of the plane. He stripped down to his nature suit and put the nature boy robe on. And walking down the aisle, going, "Woo, nature boy!" Yeah, he was a nature boy, all right, with not a stitch of clothes on. That's absolutely true. Amelia, I'm going to bring you up over here. Your thoughts on all of this craziness?
Yeah, and he was just acting crazy, like you said. And I don't think it was alcohol. And to me, it had a lot to do. I think when his son committed suicide, I think that's when it started. A lot of his alcohol. It got worse.
I think it got worse. It's a good point. I think it got worse, Mike Messier, after his son passed. Reed,
because he found him.
Reed Flair. Yeah. He did find it. He was hysterical on that 911 call. I think it certainly, if Rick was an alcoholic, and he, by all accounts, Mikey is absolutely right. Rick was an alcoholic, probably from his 20s, literally from his 20s, from his college days is where he discovered drinking. I certainly don't have any problem believing that it escalated beyond worse.
It did.
When Reed Flair passed away. I will absolutely concede that point. And that's one of those pivotal moments in his life, one of those defining moments in his life that I think defined him adversely, because the drinking ramped up exponentially after his son died.
Yes.
The other thing, Mike Messier, and maybe Amelia, I'll let you answer this first, then I'll go to Mikey.
Sure.
Because I know Mike's going to have some opinion on this. Your opinion, Amelia, on Charlotte Flair.
Yes.
Was it a good idea to allow her to wrestle? Even in as much as I know why she did it, was it a good idea to let her be a wrestler knowing who her father is?
I would believe that
Good or
it would.
bad?
I would say it would be a bad idea because it comes with a bad reputation at first, and she's going to be coming in as, oh no, that's Ric Flair's daughter. Here's what we're going to expect.
And you know what? And Mikey, I'm going to bring up here too. She's got a point there. Amelia's got a point, and I was hoping she would go there. She brings up an interesting point. You heard me phrase the question: good thing or bad thing? She's an incredibly talented young lady.
She is.
But I think that she walked into the lion's den in a very visceral way. She became a wrestler because that's what Reed Flair wanted to do. Rick's son, the one who passed away from an overdose. Yeah. So, Mikey, your thoughts on that? What the intention was good, but the execution of it, good, bad. I'll be honest, Mike. I'm on the fence with this because she is an incredibly athletic, talented woman. But you know, she's got that Flair legacy. You know,
I would say that, in my opinion, strictly as her in-ring career, I think Charlotte Flair has knocked it out of the park twice over. I think the fact that had she brought a good match out of the one when she won her first title on the main roster. She beat one of the Bella's sisters, and the Bellas, in my opinion, weren't that good of actual in-ring wrestlers. And Charlotte won the title, and a new level of credibility, in my opinion, came to women's wrestling in WWE with Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks. And later on, their little four-horse women buddies, Becky Lynch and Bailey. And I kind of buy into the hype with those four. And I think Charlotte she was the favored child. Rick and Vince McMahon, and she was the favored child. Let's not get it wrong, because Sasha Banks was just as good as Charlotte Flair. But Charlotte Flair did her part. She's had awesome matches. The backstage segment of her, Becky Lynch, and Ronda Rousey having a three-way fight before their WrestleMania main event, not the actual match, but their fight in the backstage. I put that up with anything. I put that up against anything in wrestling. I think Charlotte Flair in ring, I don't know about her intentions. I know the thing where she dedicated her career to Reed and all that good stuff. I mean, I'm glad she didn't dedicate her career to David Flair, because then she would have stunk. But I think that Charlotte Flair, as a woman wrestler and as a wrestler, period, I think she's fantastic. And I've enjoyed watching Charlotte Flair wrestle. Do I feel that if anything I have against her, I think that for a while there, I'm not really sure what was going on, but it seemed like she was doing some plastic surgery to her face. And I don't think
had work. Yeah, she had work done.
I would suggest that, like a lot of women of her generation, they get, Paige included, another wrestler, but it seems like a Kardashian effect where attractive women, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. They have no need to get a nose job or to get a chin lift or to get Botox or to get, and yes, there's a time and place for plastic surgery. But for me, if you're a good looking woman, what the hell are you doing? You don't need that stuff. So I don't, that's my thing against Charlotte. But as far as the actual in-ring stuff, I think she's tremendous. And if anything, maybe she has been over pushed a few times, but she has
definitely over pushed. That's a given. That's a given.
But the thing is, if you put Charlotte Flair, she could hold her own against Medusa, Alundra Blaze, or Wendy Richter, or Sherry Martel.
Here's a question for you. Just popped into my head. Question of the night, maybe. Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch. Shoot turned into a work, or work turned shoot?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think they were friends. I think the jealousy thing came in. And then I think, like a lot of wrestlers, the lines get blurred between Are we working each other? Are we working the fans? Are we really kind of pissy with each other? If anything, I think it was more of a professional jealousy. I'd like to think that if either one of them was stranded on the side of the street with their thumb up, the other one would pull over for her. I don't think it ever got to the point where they hated each other and wanted the other one's demise. I just think it was a deal where there's only so many golden feathers to go around, and each girl wants the most of them, or each woman wants the most of them, you know? So.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Messier has to leave us now. He's got another show to do because he's a busy guy with people to see and places to go. Mike, thank you for joining us. I appreciate everything. MikeMessier.com is the website. Go there and you'll find his links to all of his YouTube channels. You'll find links to his books and his artwork. It's a one-stop shop. MikeMessier.com. There's the books.
Yep, there they are.
Yep, there you go. Good stuff. Mikey, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Amelia. Thanks, Angelo.
Yes, you're welcome.
See you in a few days, pal. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Right.
Also, getting back to Charlotte Flair, to me, I think that if she would have started wrestling maybe under a different name and then later on revealed it.
Point, Amelia. That's a real good point. I'm surprised. And it seems so obvious because you brought it right the first thing you said.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that nobody thought about, hey, maybe we should like change her name.
Yeah.
Or just call her Charlotte. Forget the Flair.
Yeah. Just like Elizabeth was Elizabeth, just something
China
simple.
was China, and just
Let's
one
go
name.
from there.
Just call her Charlotte, And
then later on reveal, boom, guess who I really am. After Daddy finally
angle out of it. They could have made a whole program out of it.
And started in.
And I'm surprised that they, as smart as promoters can be, sometimes they're really dumb because they miss what's right in front of them.
Because they could have, kept on and made her woman's champion. And then here comes Ric Flair. And says, like, what are you doing here? Well, I'm your dad. Say, no, you're not my dad. And just kept it on and on and on. Get the fans
Would
going.
have been wonderful. Amelia, tell everybody what's coming up on the show.
Absolutely. Let's see. Next Monday, we have, actually, you have next Monday. You have Lou Ferrante coming back.
Lou is coming back. Lou is a former associate of the Gambino crime family. Under John Gotti. He knew John Gotti very well and worked for the man and spent time with his family in his home. Lou Ferrante is a best-selling author, and every time he comes back, it is definitely a story.
Yes, and I'm looking
I
forward
love
to
having Lou here. Who else is coming on? Who's on Tuesday night with us?
Return of Ronnie Marmo, bringing
Ronnie Marmo is an actor. He's a television and film actor, a movie star. He's got a movie star coming.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Ronnie Marmo is also a hell of a stage actor.
Absolutely.
His show is called I'm Not a Comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce. That's one of the shows that he's known for, among a host of credits. What else we got?
And on the 27th, we're going to, of course, Wrestling with the Future. We're going to Hall of Fame wish list.
The Hall of Fame wish list. Can I just give you a little? Let me just give you. You're going to love this. I think this is great. Where the heck did I got to see? This is what I do, folks. I put stuff in here and I forget where I put it.
And we'll hopefully going to have a guest with us that night as well.
Amelia, I had my wish list. I don't know what the hell I do with it. Oh,
I have mine somewhere, but we have.
I'll tell you who's not on the Hall of Fame. Brian Pillman.
China by herself.
China by herself is not. Haystacks Calhoun is not in the WWE Hall of Fame. Oh my God, let me see who do I think of? I
think it should be also by. Is there?
This is what happens when I don't have my list in front of me. I get lost without my list.
Who else I think that should be that's not on there is Elizabeth.
Oh, Elizabeth for sure. Is Lex? I don't. Is Lex Luger in the
Luger's not on there?
No, he's not in the Hall. There's a lot of people need to be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to talk about our conversation is our WWE Hall of Fame wish list. We're going to have a special guest that night.
Yes.
Named Lou Marconi. It's Amelia's boyfriend from Another from a wrestling promotion somewhere. I think she hooked up with him online somewhere. I don't know. I'm kidding, Jeff.
And Mr.
I'm
was
kidding,
it,
Joseph, in case you're watching.
and was it Mr. Miserable or what's his name?
In case you see a bat flying across your screen, folks. I'm kidding, Jeffrey. Fun. No, Lou's going to join us from his show in Cleveland called Cleveland Sports. He's going to join us there.
Yeah.
And we will see him next week. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame wish list. Who's in the Hall? Who's not? And who's got? So let's see. We're going to find out. I have a list of like 50 people that I have here that are not in the Hall of Fame. And I mean, it's like this long. I made this list. Is a big list.
If you know anybody that's going to be watching that night, if you have your own list, let us know as well. Please join in and let us know who you think that should be as well.
I want to tell everybody you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@what's-the-buzz-popcast. If you go there, you will also find our other 2 YouTube channels. We've got 3 YouTube channels broadcasting us around the world. We also have, right now, we're broadcasting on 2 independent television stations in Europe at this very moment. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Where else? Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music. Everywhere you can. I mean, I'll be here for 3 days telling you where we are.
Right.
And, you know, you have to wake me up every now and then. But I'll tell you what. No, we've got an amazing show. We're very, very fortunate to have the audience that we have.
Yes.
Amelia and I are grateful every day that we have people who listen, people who like us. We have a really loyal following. I'm very grateful for that.
Absolutely.
Just tell everybody we are on WWTF Radio 88.7 on the broadband radio system. Once again, all of our links in one place at linktree.com/WWTF Radio. Every Wednesday night, you are watching Wrestling with the Future podcast with the Mad Dog, Angelo DeZibbio. That's me. And the Pitbull, Amelia. The Pitbull Chapman. There she is. There's the Pitbull.
And slowly getting my voice back little by little. Don't you say anything.
You got it back. Look, I was easy on you last night. You got away with easy last night. Okay? And I didn't touch you tonight. Okay? I was nice tonight. Because Mike Messier was here, and I won't make Mike think I'm a bad guy picking on you. Plus, my wife already thinks I pick on you too much. And I don't pick on you. I really don't.
No, just kidding. No, he don't.
I really don't. Will you tell Anita that, please? Because she thinks I pick on you.
He doesn't pick on me, Anita, really.
On behalf. I got to get out of here tonight. I got to put this show up. On behalf of Amelia Pitbull Chapman, on behalf of Mad Mike Messier, the movie maker, a man in the camera films, I am Angelo, the Mad Dog, DeCipio. We'll see you next week, folks. God bless. We hope that God blesses us. And Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we'll be here next week.
Right.
All right. So, once again, on behalf of the Pitbull and the Mad Dog, be good. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.